by Arkansas, for Arkansas. This is Inside Arkansas Live.
And welcome into Inside Arkansas Live here on this beautiful day here on the great state of Arkansas. I'm John Neighbors alongside Andrew Ellis. Curtis Wilkerson will be joining us later in the show today. But of course, we always appreciate each and every one of you for making us a part of your afternoon. This afternoon you have a great Friday show in store for you, folks. You finally made it to the weekend. We're going to have plenty of things to discuss. We're going to look ahead to the weekend, looking at some college basketball. We're going to be joined and talk a little previewing of Arkansas and UCA down in North Little Rock. We'll get to that. We'll get to your chats. We'll get to transfer portal updates. We'll get to all the chaos. But, Andrew, I know that last night Arkansas had a nice commitment out of the transfer portal, but been pretty quiet today here on a Friday for Arkansas.
Yeah, today is the least Friday of all time. It doesn't look like Friday outside. It doesn't feel like Friday outside. It hasn't been a chaotic news day. So, maybe it's just with this portal madness, I've just lost track of the days. But right as we were about to go live, I was like, what day of the week is it? It's Friday? What? This is the last show we're doing of the week? Like, what the hell? But, like you said, there's a lot going on in the portal. Who knows when we'll expect more news? Does seem like Arkansas has a ton of people on campus today. One that sticks out to me is the wide receiver DT Sheffield from North Texas. That's an interesting one. So again, we're probably going to get some news here in the next few days, and we will just be on red alert and ready to bring it to you whenever we get it. But yeah, I'm excited for today. Excited for the game tomorrow. Excited to be a Hog.
That's right. Yeah, I don't know how many people are excited to be a Hog right now, but that seems to be the case, at least, is excitement about the uncertainty of what could be going on moving forward. Because at this point in time, if the numbers are correct here, Andrew, on Hog Sports, it says that 26 outgoing transfers for Arkansas at this point. If you want a little bit of a way of looking at it, that's like an entire high school class that you have entering into the transfer portal, getting out of that. And, when the numbers start really piling up that way, it's really interesting. In fact, yesterday, even, one of the guys that Sam Pittman Sam Pittman was talking about guys that could enter into the portal and make their way back. Selman Bridges was one of those guys. He withdrew his name from the transfer portal. I don't think that's just going to be, okay, now we're cooking, now we're back, because he was a true freshman, didn't play much. But at least it was nice to see one of those guys who, I guess, entered in the right way, as Sam Pittman talked about. But it's going to be curious to see if anybody else does that. I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and try to predict who would, but there is a possibility that maybe there could be more of these Razorback players in the portal that decide to come back after a given point in time.
I mean, leave it to a kid named Bridges to not burn his. And so he kept his relationship with the coaching staff going pretty well. I like Curtis's tweet. He said, Selman did it the right way, Bridges. Because, that was kind of what Sam Pittman was saying, is like, if they did it the right way, they can come back and we can have that conversation. And so, look, who knows what that conversation looks like? I can't imagine that Selman Bridges, who didn't really play a ton as a freshman, although they did burn his red shirt, didn't play a ton on defense. I can't imagine he was one of those guys that came to the coaches and were like trying to strong arm him for money. If he had an agent tell him that he was about to go get a fat bag in the portal, then that would be very problematic, and you could see why he crawled right on back to Arkansas. But nonetheless, Selman Bridges is a guy that we heard a lot about in spring ball. When he first got on campus, he was one of Arkansas's highest rated recruits in last year's class. He was a guy that, he looks the part. He has that Nudie McGlothern type of build to him, that 6'2", 180, like long, rangy corner. Kind of looks like the type of guy you would want to see in the NFL, kind of like the Seattle Seahawks blueprint, the Richard Sherman type of body type. So he's a guy that we were always kind of intrigued by his skill set and thought he might have a chance to be a nice player for Arkansas. Obviously didn't see it as a true freshman, but when he entered the portal, I was like, damn, you can't even keep like the young pieces around. So really, I feel like it's nice to get him back. Hell, it's going to be huge for the bowl game because we still really don't know who all is going to play corner. Arkansas's got some seniors like a Keon Stewart and like Marquise Robinson who are going to be outgoing guys. I guess they'll still be around for the bowl game, but I'd love to see Selman Bridges get back in there. I'm sure he's at practice today. Would love to see him get back in the mix and get some playing time on defense in this bowl game and give Arkansas at least one of their nice little pieces on the defensive end.
Yeah, there's a few players that, of course, are going to be visiting Arkansas out of the transfer portal here over the next few days. People like tight end position, obviously, is something of note, but secondary players, wide receivers, you're going to need a lot of help here. So as of right now, at least, You just got a few. No one. I mean, a few of them are of note. I know that, like, I guess Corey Robinson, the Georgia Tech offensive tackle, is going to be visiting this weekend. Jaden Platt, the Texas A&M tight end, is going to be visiting this weekend. So you're going to see some pieces come together. The whole thing is you just don't want to have them leave without, like, if they leave in the next day, there's nothing. That means odds are they're not going to be committing to Arkansas. So, but Pittman talked about how they had, what was it, 28 or however many visits set up?
Yeah, 29, I think is the number.
29. Yeah. And according to at least 24/7 Sports, listed, at least publicly known, or at least known by them, is only about 10. So, as far as ones that we don't even know, there could be some. I think that's what's going to be funny, seeing people be like, oh man, there's this one guy. It's a secret visit that no one knows about from this 5-star transfer portal guy. I mean, maybe, but at this point, we only know what we know, and it doesn't look like at this point in time, there's, again, few players that could really help out, but nobody that's really just going to move the needle and go crazy, make people get all excited at once.
Yeah, nothing crazy. I mean, and frankly, like, I would classify the Oregon guy, McCroy, that they got yesterday, as that kind of guy who is a nice pickup, a piece. I mean, a guy that was a top 100 recruit just a year ago. I think he's a really nice addition. One that, like, a nice piece to have. Someone, I mean, I think he'll hop right into the 2 deep and give Arkansas some depth there on the offensive line. I don't think the plan is for him to come in and start at right tackle, especially if they get the tackle from Georgia Tech, who's also apparently visiting this weekend. But I do think that's a nice piece to have. It's just tough because it's like every move that happens, I feel like the fan base is almost like waiting for it to be the move that, like, wins them back over or, like, clears up all the concern. And it's like, okay, now we're good. And so it's like you get a right tackle from Oregon who hasn't played yet in his college career, and it's like, all right, is that going to fix everything? It's like, no. And it's like it'll take a while. But again, like, I know that Sam Pittman was preaching patience, and we are very skeptical as to whether or not Arkansas is going to actually be able to improve the talent on their roster. But again, patience is kind of the key here, and we'll just have to see what they do. We'll have to see what this end result ends up being. I think this weekend is a nice first step. If you can go ahead and get you a tight end, get you maybe 1 or 2 experienced offensive linemen, maybe get you a receiver, you start picking off some of those empty spots that you have. You start hitting the whack-a-mole a little bit. You can clear up some of your concern. And so again, I don't think that it's like going to be one of those things where on Sunday after this visit weekend, we're going to be like, Arkansas now has a great football team. But I do think there's some positive things they can do, and we'll just have to see how it plays out. But I know some fans are like already back on board after hearing Sam Pittman talk yesterday. I know there's some fans who are like, no matter what happens, they're going to be pissed. And I feel like we're right in the middle where we're like skeptical, but we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, because I am skeptical. I really am skeptical. And, speaking of the Pittman deal, as far as, how people feel about it, we're going to use that for our Alumni Hall question of the day presented by Alumni Hall yesterday. Of course, Alumni Hall, place to go anytime you need any sort of apparel, anything for all of your holiday season, all things Razorbacks. They have it right there. So shop them online, Alumni Hall, and they have anything available that you could possibly want for men, women, kids, pets. They got decorations, Christmas, all of that stuff. Get it at Alumni Hall today at alumnihall.com or 3417 North College Avenue. I figured we might as well, bring in our guy Curtis, because he decided to make it and join us today. So perfect timing for him. So it's good to see you, Curtis. Glad you could make it and join us on this and pencil us into your otherwise demanding schedule.
Well, I'm glad I could be here too. I got about half of my setup done before I hopped on here. So it's computer cam instead of webcam today. People are just going to have to deal with the closeness of my face. It's I didn't think I'd be able to make it from Connecticut to Dallas to Fayetteville for any of this show, but here we are. So I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, sounds like somebody with warrants going out, if like making it from Connecticut to Dallas to Fayetteville. Like, it's crazy. Terrible. Yeah. Well, it's good to have you on here. And for the poll question, of course, talking about how did Sam Pittman's press conference make people feel? Put it out on Twitter, and it's not a surprise, but it is kind of funny. Because again, just 3 options here: better, worse, or the same. The same is leading the way at 48%. Okay, that's 48% of you feel that the press conference yesterday didn't change your mind, didn't do anything for you, all of that. Here's what's crazy though: 45% say better. 45% said the press conference made them feel better yesterday compared to today, and only 7.5% said the press conference made them feel worse. So again, you're talking about close to 1,000 people that voted, so it's not the end all, no all, be all as far as knowing exactly how people felt. But it was pretty fascinating to see where so much in our chats or when we talk and interact with people, they're like, oh man, this guy has no idea what he's doing. These clips, it's just always an idiot. And then you see people that they're actually out there saying, hey, it made me feel a little bit better. And also, I want to defend those that may say it feel better. I don't want to speak for them, but I don't think most of them probably aren't feeling it saying, oh, it made me feel better as in, oh, we're going to be great. It's going to be a great season next year. We're going to get it done. It's more feeling better about, hey, let's give him some time. Let's get some patience here and let's see what he can actually do and if he can actually put together a roster. I don't think it was just I thought everything was bad, but now I think a national championship's in our horizon next year.
So I missed the first few minutes of the conversation. Everybody's excited and back on board. What's the pulse before I weigh in here? How's everybody feeling?
I mean, according to the poll results, it seems like, well, I can't quite tell. I mean, I always sometimes see our chat and take that as the pulse of Razorback Nation, and then I'm told that it's not. But I think overwhelmingly, for the most part, more positive reaction to what Pittman had to say yesterday.
Well, good. I mean, I honestly, kidding aside, I think people can approach this in a couple different ways. You can either choose to listen to the man and then, like practice patience and wait to see how this thing plays out. If that comes with optimism, cool, you're entitled to that. Or you can hear him and you know that you have no choice but to wait it out anyway and see what this looks like in the end. But you can have skepticism going into year 6 about how this thing is going to play out. People can take either side of the coin and they're not necessarily wrong. Like nobody's wrong for how they feel about it. I did see a lot of very positive reaction to the kid from Oregon committing. And hey, I think it's a good move. I do. But again, it's one of many, many, many that they have to make. So for the people, I was reading through the YouTube comments, Andrew, on the video that you put out, and it was like a 50-50 split between, you guys are a joke. Why are you so excited? Dude hasn't even played a snap of college football. And then others saying, hey, inside Arkansas, go eat your damn crow. It's not so bad now, is it? And you can feel either way. I think for us, it's like when bad things happen, we're going to talk about the bad. When good things happen, we're going to talk about the good. So I'm very intrigued by the addition. It's one of like 4 they need to make on the offensive line. So a decent start and move forward from there.
I was a little surprised by how many people commented and were like doing a victory lap. They were like, see, and I was like, well, I like this piece, but let's maybe wait and see a little bit more. But again, that's just going to be how it is. Every guy that commits from here on out, you're going to get a lot of people who are like, see, this is proof the program is back on track and they're headed towards the top. And then you're going to have some that are just like, this kid sucks. Doesn't matter. Doesn't move the needle. You need to do more. And again, I feel like there's room to be in the middle somewhere.
Yeah, there is, but don't tell that to anybody because that's not the case is how it's going to be. But again, you got some good news. I mean, you got not only that, but we also talked about Selman Bridges coming back where, it doesn't mean that he's going to be a bona fide starter and a great player. I don't know, maybe, but it's nice to at least have somebody that was highly regarded and highly recruited being able to be back on your roster, especially with the numbers and everything, which I feel like he's probably going to have plenty of playing time in the Liberty Bowl. So, he may not have played much, but he'll have plenty of options and plenty of opportunities there in the Liberty Bowl there. And so, yeah, and it's fine. Again, there's nothing wrong. And this was kind of the point with the question I asked with the question of the day. There's nothing wrong with any of those options, folks. Like if you feel better after the press conference, that's fine. If you feel the same, that's fine. If you feel worse, that's fine. Like you can feel however you want, and I won't argue with you. I'm not going to sit here and say you should feel great. It's not going to be that way. But it is something where the next week and a half, as the time that Sam Pittman put out there, it's going to be interesting to see what happens and if anything happens. Because if we were doing this show a week from now, next Friday, and we're coming out, we're like, so don't really know who these guys are or what this is looking like right now, and they haven't really addressed any of the needs, then people are going to start revving back up and being majorly concerned. But if we come back out here next Friday, we're like, hey, you know what? They've actually done a pretty good job. They've had some couple of guys here and there. It's not going to be sunshine pumping, but it's going to be at least, hey, they are addressing the needs and they are doing what they can to try to get guys out of the portal to help them out this season.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is the part of this process that I was kind of looking forward to, which is when they start actually adding guys. Because man, the cycle of suck was rough on Razorback fans, and who knows if they're done losing guys or getting guys back who already elected to leave. I mean, we've seen a lot of that. So that part of the attrition is probably still ongoing a little bit, but now at least you can start adding the pieces. And like you said, man, and like Pittman said, 29 visitors coming in over the next, week or two here. That's a good thing. Some guys, and it's like he said, hey, we're going to go out and get some dudes, but we're also going to have to fill out the roster. And I think you're seeing a lot of these visitors are fill out the roster type guys. But you got to get them. And there's some guys there you should be excited about. So like the kid from North Texas, the receiver that's on campus today. I saw Danny West put out there that he was out at practice. Arkansas got back to practice today. That is a dude who, I get it. Like it's a group of 5 school or whatever, but he's a needle mover for me. I mean, I think that would be a big time addition if they could get it done. And so, it's definitely a wait and see, but I sit here and I think we're going to be waiting to see for a long time because they need about, I don't know, a dozen needle movers and then probably a dozen more guys who can fill out some quality depth there.
Yeah, I saw that Sheffield is apparently he's planning on going, according to Zenith's of 24/7 Sports, he's apparently planning on visiting Rutgers after he leaves Arkansas this weekend, which, I think if you're Arkansas, you can't let him get on that flight to New Jersey. You just can't. Yeah. I think you got to go ahead and lock that guy up now. Was a little surprised that we didn't see them lock up Raylan Sharp a few days ago because everything kind of seemed like a no-brainer. And now I'm also wondering, by the way, DT Sheffield is 5'11", 180, had over 800 yards this past season in North Texas, 11 touchdowns. I feel like you don't bring in him and Sharp. Right. I could be wrong, but I mean, it just seems like repeating skill sets. Now, at the same time, Arkansas doesn't have any returning production at receiver, so I don't know if really they can, again, be picky. I think you just take as many as you can get. But I would say either one of those guys would be a really nice start. But I'm really intrigued by the Sheffield kid. Got some experience, proved a lot there at North Texas this past year. Would be a really nice pickup, and we'll see what this receiving room looks like around him. I'm also very intrigued by the offensive line because everyone is excited about the Oregon kid, and I am too. I think he's a nice piece. I could be wrong. I don't think the plan is for him to come in and be a starter. And I don't know if it should be, considering he's not played college football yet, which there's no shame in not playing at Oregon. But, I don't think a redshirt freshman coming in and starting at right tackle in the SEC is necessarily the should be the option A necessarily. I also saw John Singleton here says Sam may play the Oregon kid at guard. I would be extremely surprised if this happened.
I hope. Well, I wouldn't, because they do that. And I think that's part of the reason why they haven't been able to develop offensive linemen super well, because it's like, I think this guy's got a bright future at tackle, so we're going to put him at center. And, we're going to cross train and we're going to move him from outside to inside, just that way he can play. And I understand the thought of let's get our 5 best guys on the field or whatever. I think that's been part of the problem, is you got a bunch of guards playing tackles playing guards. You don't have a center, so you just try to find somebody who can snap the football. And I'm with you on that one. I do think, if he's a tackle and has been a tackle and he's a former top 100 recruit with the talent and projections based on that, keep him there. I get it, because he's a huge man. Keep him there.
Mm-hmm. And also, we've always said the closer you are to the ball, the harder it is to just jump it right in and play as a young kid. I agree on if he's he's 6'9". I don't know if I feel like tackle is his long-term future. And again, everybody always cites them playing Dan Skipper at guard as a freshman. They did that because they had to. And they would say that was not what they wanted to do. That's not what Dan Skipper wanted to do. They did it because they had to. So I feel like if that kid ends up playing guard, it is not a good sign. That would mean they probably whiffed on some transfer guards is what that would mean.
Well, and I've also seen people bring up examples of Frank Ragnow and how different positions he played. But I'm like, okay, you're talking about an anomaly, though. You're talking about a offensive lineman that is that good that he could excel. If Ragnow, I believe, he's playing center in the NFL, if they moved him to guard, I still feel like he'd be really good and good enough to play in the NFL. That's the type of player he is. So just because it happened once doesn't mean that it should continue to happen, and doesn't mean that you should have it that way. I don't know what offensive line as far as how to coach it or how to deal with it. I don't know. But what I do know is that when you look back in history, especially in Arkansas history, of when they had the best offensive line or best offensive linemen, they didn't play a bunch of different positions. It's like you knew what they were playing. That's what they played pretty much the entire time they were at Arkansas, and they excelled at it. I'd rather have that. I get it. Maybe you want to give them some options if they get to the NFL and it opens them up for other positions that they could play instead of just being that one. I get it. But and then fall camp, or I guess maybe spring ball it was, when hearing Mateos and Pittman talk about rotating offensive linemen around and all that. I'm like, I don't think that's good. Like, I'm sorry. I just don't see how that is going to make your offensive line better. And I don't see anybody else really doing that either. So it's not like, I'm stuck in the past of this old school way of thinking. I don't see any other major schools and SEC schools doing those types of things either.
I hate to keep throwing water on this whole thing because I did a whole 10-minute video kind of hyping up the kid and saying how excited I was, but I see Bobby G says good PR with stealing a player from Oregon. That is a misunderstanding of what's going on here. Oregon is the number one team in the country. They're getting ready to play in the playoff. He's not in there too deep. Like he wasn't playing at Oregon.
He wouldn't have left yet. Yeah.
Right. Like I was about to say, like, I don't think if there was any chance of him playing in the playoff, he would have left. And there could actually be an argument made that it's a bad sign that he's leaving a playoff team. But again, I'm not trying to throw. I like the kid. I like his upside. I think it's a good move to bring in a kid with obviously a really good pedigree, a former top 100 recruit. But I also want people to understand what this is. This is not like Arkansas went in and poached a kid from Oregon. I think this is a kid that was probably going to enter the portal and go somewhere else regardless.
Yeah, my thought is like you need 3 types of players to kind of make this thing work. It's going to be the dudes who have proven production that you feel like, okay, like he's been there, done that, and it can translate. And that can be some of these group of 5 guys that put up big numbies, whatever. The less sexy additions that you feel good about what you're going to get. That's 1. 2, they said, hey, if we really like a guy and we feel like we, maybe need to overpay to get him, we're in position to maybe do that for a guy or 2. So go out and get one of these, 1 or 2 of these studs out of the portal, one of the dudes that Arkansas is not really being connected with right now. Go out and get that type of player. But then you got to have additions like this. You really do, who guys with immense talent, high-end talent, heavily thought of in the recruiting circles, a lot of projectables, and whether it was just too early or buried on the depth chart or, whatever, a guy who has all the talent and all the intangibles, and can they pop with the change of scenery? Maybe they can. And if so, awesome. Then you got a hell of a deal here. And if they don't, then you got, like, no shade, but like Tykeus Crawford 2.0 or whatever. And then you just miss, but you have to be able to take some of those chances and gambles. And if a couple of them pay off, then that's how you kind of bridge the gap a little bit on what you have to do here with so much to replace.
Yeah. So using that as part of the Arkansas update presented by Davis & Garrett Insurance, your independent auto owners insurance agency, securing what matters the most. I did want to bring this up because obviously with the new addition that they have from the Razorback offensive line, from the transfer portal, and they're going to add in there, I was trying to go through and just look at the years of Sam Pittman since he's been at Arkansas, and who is the offensive lineman that developed the most? I'm just curious about that. Like that Sam Pittman brought in, or that at least even if Sam Pittman inherited him from Chad Morris or whatever, but which was the offensive lineman that actually made the most strides in development year to year?
Are we saying his new stint at Arkansas, his head coaching stint?
Yes, his head coaching stint. Yeah, since being at Arkansas.
I mean, would it have had to have been one of the Chad Morris, like Latham or Limmer or Stromberg, or like one of those guys maybe?
I was thinking Stromberg would probably be the best bet.
Because he was like 260 pounds or whatever, and they were playing him as a freshman, and then he wound up being pretty damn good.
I think Limmer's a good option here because Limmer's a guy that, if am I maybe mistaken here, he was a defensive lineman at one point, right?
Yes, I think that's true.
Or am I confusing him with Froholt?
I know Froholt was. I thought there was another one, but maybe.
But I feel like Limmer was one of those guys who, like, when he first got on campus, was like very much a project. He was a big, strong guy, but very much a project. And I mean, I saw him playing center last night for the Los Angeles Rams. Like, the fact that they turned Bo Limmer into a real NFL center, I feel like that's a pretty good feather to have in your cap. Stromberg's a good one because he was a guy that was like, when they signed him, he was like a 3-star that, like, his offers were like Tulsa and all these group of 5 schools. They kind of offered him late in the process. And then, he turned into an NFL draft pick. His pro career, I'm surprised it didn't really pan out for him. But that's probably the best case of at least the new era guys.
Yeah, I was just trying to think of anybody that could stand out, because even a guy that, like, some of them either didn't pan out the way that we thought they would, got marginally better or worse, or just didn't change at all, or they left. I mean, that's the options that's really been out there. And since it's happened and people have seen it already, no surprise, but Patrick Kudus did officially commit to the Ole Miss Rebels today. And people have been having some interesting comments about that. but still not surprised. His girlfriend reportedly attends there. And it was kind of funny, apparently, on the old Boss Hogs podcast, which used to be a part of what we did here. I didn't even realize it, but apparently Patrick Kudus said that he hated Ole Miss and grew up hating Ole Miss. So another little fun twist into the storyline of the transition from Arkansas to Ole Miss.
Do you guys think Kudus was one of the guys who didn't do it the right way? Selman Bridges did it the right way. Kudus maybe not.
I would say probably didn't do it the right way. No,
1,000%.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
he was 100% one of those guys where Sam was like, "Hey, there's a bunch of these dudes who, when they come in here and talk to me, they know exactly where they're going and how much they're getting when they leave." I kind of feel like that's probably a good example here. They tried, and we talked about this yesterday with like any questions you guys would have liked to ask or whatever. I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was Hutch. I don't know, but like somebody tried to get him to speak directly on the Patrick Kudus thing. Given the entire list of circumstances there, and Pittman did a good job of being diplomatic and saying, I don't want to talk about specifics, but I'm going to non-specifically be very specific about this situation. So he addressed it in a roundabout way.
Well, my question is for this, and again, I don't know if this becomes maybe a follow-up to that from Sam Pittman. What did you learn, Sam? What did you learn from that little experience there? Is that these kids, as much as you love them, and I'm not saying all of them are that way, but as much as you love them, as much as you want to help them, they will leave you. They're not loyal to you. So even if a player says that to you, do not believe it, or at least plan, at least put together like the possibility that this kid could leave. I'm hoping that maybe at least with all the things that happened, he could learn that lesson and all that could have happened. He could have learned that lesson that, hey, just because it sounds good and I like this attitude, he wants to be a hog and he tells me that, doesn't always mean that they want to be a hog.
Well, maybe that's why they're going to be, like Kudus. They obviously preserved his red shirt. They preserved Miguel Mitchell's red shirt. We'll see what he ends up doing. But maybe that's why they were like
about him.
Yeah, we haven't heard anything about him. I mean, we obviously did. We also didn't hear that much about him during the actual season itself. But maybe that's why he's like, you know what? I'm not redshirting Tevis Metcalf. I'm not redshirting Selman Bridges. To hell with them.
You think he'll like now start just forgetting red shirts at all? Just no more red. Nobody gets red shirts anymore.
Yeah, we're playing on field goal block every single snap. You're going to play in 12 games.
Danny Shee, I thought he asked a good question once he was able to get his mic to work. Where he was basically poor guy. I love Danny Shee, man. But he asked Sam basically like, hey, like we talked so much about their lack of a high school hit rate with these guys coming in. And he was like, does this make you feel like you need to maybe bump the freshmen up on the depth chart, play them a little bit earlier so you don't lose them, the guys you're really high on for the future? And Sam was like, no, I just think we'll just play the best players, regardless of who they are. If we play a freshman and the junior's better, then the junior's going to leave. So it is what it is. But I understood the question of like, it was almost a roundabout way of saying, okay, is it even worth it to recruit these high school kids anymore? Because,
I mean, one, by the way, was Daniel Shee the LVP of the press conference yesterday?
I felt bad for him. Man.
I felt bad for him too. There was one time when I brought him on Bombastic and his mic was doing that crap, and I was like, "Oh God!" I don't know what it is about his computer audio. It's just horrible. But yeah. And matter of fact, Sam later in the press conference himself kind of confirmed that, where he's like, "Hey, this freshman class we had didn't cost us a penny." So that's kind of where we decided to spend our money, where he was like, hey, this freshman class that we have, we're not going to spend a ton of money. Now, I'm sure Madden cost them some money. I'm sure Tavion Wallace even cost him some money. But I think Sam even kind of alluded to that, where he's like, yeah, I'm not going to go out of my way to try and sign this awesome freshman class, which, I mean, if you look at his last 4 or 5 classes, it makes it clear that it's not a high priority for him. But yeah, that's what's so funny about the idea that the transfer portal ruined Arkansas football. It's the one thing that's helping keep Arkansas afloat. And if Arkansas is going to have a decent roster next year, it's going to have to be because they nailed the portal. So I know everybody hates this new era of college football and thinks it sucks. But it's actually like the one thing that Arkansas is doing decently.
Yeah. Yeah. I felt like as soon as the portal became a real thing and mixed in with NIL, I felt like Arkansas football was like, hey, there's your best chance, man. Just focus on that. Focus on that portal. I just don't care about high school recruiting because of all the reasons that were listed. Like, yeah, it'd be nice to get a 5-star, but one, you don't even know if they're going to pan out, if they're going to live up to that 5-star expectation. 2, you don't know if they're going to be able to contribute right away. And 3, odds are they're not even going to be here long enough. So might as well go and try to spend all your time and money and effort on somebody who's actually played, who's actually established, and who honestly, not saying that they can't leave the next year, because they could, but it'd be a little bit easier to have them step right in and at least stay for a year, maybe 2, in that case. But it's people who complain about the transfer portal and all that. I understand, but there's nothing you can do about it. Like, there's no reason to complain about it, because this is just the way it is. So I'd rather set it up to make it to where you or whatever school or whatever team you're at, just do whatever you can with it and do your best with it, instead of just complaining about it and being resistant to it. Because if you keep being resistant to it, it's going to cause you being in a major problem. And that's kind of where Arkansas is at right now, because I think there's some people that are very resistant to NIL, to transfer portal, and it ends up killing you in the end. So they got to change that up.
I don't know if Sam Pittman was like, I don't know if he was coached up or if he just has more situational awareness, but I wonder how much he's been thinking about that blue light special comment, because I think back to yesterday. I was thinking about this last night, and over he was like, man, these guys, they're asking for 4 or 5 times the amount of money that we thought they would, and we couldn't pay this. But how many times does he say, we have money? It's almost like he knows that these things are going to get clipped out, so he has to create his own, to go against negative recruiting. He's like, no, don't get it twisted. We have money. Come play for us. We'll pay you. We're just not going to pay these guys. Over and over and over, he did that. So I just wonder if somebody was like, hey, understood what you were trying to say before that Ole Miss game. That didn't really plan out that well. So maybe just make it very, very clear that Arkansas does have NIL that they can provide to student athletes to play football for the Razorbacks.
It's very, I mean, look, I'm going to have to go back and listen to it again just to really get a firm grasp on what all he said. But I think he was very careful with how he worded a few things there. Mm-hmm. I just, big picture, and look, I know that people are going to say I'm a hater. People are going to say I'm negative. I just don't know if we're not a blue light special school. We're just not going to pay the guys on our roster, and we're going to find guys that are cheaper and do it that way. Like, I don't know if that's a selling point necessarily. And look, I know there's a lot of people who agree with that mindset of like, you know what? Is Kudus that good? We can go out and get 2 guards for the same price. All that's fine, but it doesn't dispel the narrative that you're, doing the blue light special bit.
They ain't escaping the allegations.
Right. No. Which, by the way, is fine. Like, you can build a good football team doing that. Hell, South Carolina only spent like $9 million on their football team, and they had a great football team. You can do it well, and I'm not saying Arkansas can't. But again, it's like you don't get to escape the blue light special allegations if you're openly saying you're doing the blue light special.
And again, it goes back to learning something from this, Sam. The comment you made about blue light special, how, in what way, in what shape, in what form did that help? Like, who did that help? Did it help anybody? Like, there was zero. It only hurt, because now, whether it's true or not, you could have players being like, oh, well, screw this guy. He's saying I'm a blue light special. And then people also who potentially could go there looking at it and be like, well, if they got blue light special months, mean they don't have any money to pay the good players. I mean, there's just so many things that can be taken from that. And I honestly don't know why he said it. And it's just the comment and expecting that, oh, now we got the money, even though we're still going to spend as little as money as possible. That's to me what, and you can use this in business, you can use this in companies, you can use it in anything. When you're coming out and it's prevalent, you're saying we are going to spend the least amount of money to try and get the best we possibly can. That's not going to correlate, because then that's basically saying that if you're a great player and Arkansas is recruiting you and they're giving you a blue light special offer and you say no, then you're not going to, there's no negotiation. They're not going to be like, hey, we're going to, okay, well, how about we double that? There's not going to be any of that. It's just like, hey, take it or leave it. This is all we're going to pay. But that's all we feel like you're worth. That's still going to hurt you in the end, in my opinion.
And to answer your question, John, I honestly feel like the reason he said it was they were about to play Ole Miss in football. He was pre-game. He knew they were about to get their ass whipped. He needed a defense. I mean, he needed an excuse, which, like, look, that's kind of what Sam Pittman's job is. He just has to explain why bad things happen a lot. And so I think in that moment, he was like, that's my excuse is Ole Miss spent a bunch of money on NIL and we didn't. And so that's why we're losing this game. Hell, a lot of fans feel that way. Every time Arkansas loses a game, we read the comments and it's like, well, they only lost because of NIL. They only lost because of NIL, which is fine. And it's true in a lot of cases. But here's my thing. You don't get to tell us that we're wrong about the blue light special thing now. And then later in the fall, when they lose to Notre Dame, be like, well, they only lost because of NIL and blah. It's like, well, that's kind of what the argument we were trying to make in the offseason. That's what we're saying now is like, it's clear Arkansas is going to try and moneyball this thing, which is fine. And like, they might do it very well, but you don't get to cite that as a reason why you lost later in the season. If you're telling us now it's not a problem.
Yep.
Yeah. I can't wait for it to come out next year when he's going to say it, or somebody's going to say it and be like, okay, so last year was a blue light special. What is it this year? You know, what's the problem now? Is this just another thing of blue light special? Can't really see it that way. So we'll get to see a few of your chats, folks. Appreciate everybody listening and watching in here on the show. Appreciate super chat from JM Scott. We always appreciate super chats. He says, do you think Kudus and Braxton's evaluation by SP and staff included past injuries, and that may be the reason why they didn't dish out more money?
I mean, Ole Miss was aware of the injuries that Kudus and Braxton were dealing with, or Kudus was dealing with. So, you know, I mean, I'm sure that's part of the equation there. But I think like everybody else takes into account the exact same thing. And the other thing that Sam Pittman mentioned during the press conference was that, and again, like maybe he was saying the quiet part out loud without outright rolling somebody under the bus, but the whole thing about, hey, agents saying, look, man, if you sit out the rest of the year, if you get your red shirt or whatever, I can get you this much money. But if you go back and play, it's going to be this much and it's going to be less. And then that's a consideration these guys are dealing with. Where when he was asked outright about tampering from, you know, other SEC coaches, cheating, whatever, and he was saying, I really feel like it's more coming from the agents, you know, who are just going out and putting out feelers and everything that are putting these bugs in the guys' ears. So, you know.
I think it's possible, but I would also, I mean, too, along that point, Curtis, I would say that literally everyone saw the Jalen Braxton thing coming except for Sam Pittman somehow, because we talked about it all year. We kind of alluded to like, hey, is he really injured, or like what's going on here? It was a knee bruise and now he's out for the year, and like what's going on? And even Sam was like, yeah, it's just not getting better. So I think Sam in that moment really thought it was just like this real back-breaking injury that was keeping Jalen Braxton out. But everyone else was hearing rumors that his dad is shopping him around and all that. And that all kind of turned out to be true and is coming to fruition. I mean, he's at Missouri this weekend, I believe. So we'll see where he ends up or what amount he ends up getting. But yeah, it is kind of weird that pretty much everybody saw that coming and could kind of tell what was happening, except for Sam Pittman, it seemed.
Don't go to Mizzou, dude.
Yeah,
don't go to Mizzou.
I would rather him go to Ole Miss than Missouri.
Yeah, because I mean, if you go to Missouri, at least you get to play in 6 straight home games to start the year. You got that going for you.
That is true.
That's a good point.
But also going back to the Braxton thing, man, it just, again, knowing what we know now, Sam Pittman's like, oh, remember he's saying, hey, we're looking to get Braxton back. Hey, he's going to be practicing this week and all of that. And then it finally got to the point where he got asked, hey, what about Braxton? Just he's not available. You can just tell he's like, I'm done with this. I'm so out of here.
Any chance we see him? No.
Yeah. And I'm like, I give credit to Sam Pittman for handling it that way, but just knowing me, it would be so difficult for me to not just be like, well, we wanted him to play and we plan on playing. He's healthy as can be, but he's got people in his ear that are telling him that he doesn't need to play because he can get more NIL money in the offseason. Like, I would want to say that. And so kudos to Pittman for not taking that route, because, man, that would have been and I don't know for sure if that's a thing with Braxton. I'm using this as a general, if any player did this, but I would be so pissed off if that happened, and so livid and frustrated if that type of crap happened, which I know it does. It'd be hard for me to just remain quiet and not say anything about it. So dumb.
Yep.
See some other chats real quick too. This comes from Shep. I think we talked about it, but he says, can the new transfer play in a bowl game? I've heard no, just curious.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No midseason trades in college football.
Which Sam was also asked about, like if any guys who are in the portal could play in the bowl game if they haven't found a new team, which I found really, really odd. But I think the reason it was asked is because the Texas Tech coach said something along the lines of he was open to that. Like guys who have already announced that they're transferring out of his program, participating in the bowl. Maybe those are the guys who, quote, did it the right way or something. But I've heard before, like if you're leaving, you ain't playing, bro. Winning the damn Liberty Bowl doesn't mean that much to me personally.
You see it happen here and there where a player who's like planning to enter the portal already has, but it really doesn't happen much. I would not be like holding my breath waiting for that. I think there might be a case of a guy like Selman Bridges. Like he'll obviously be able to play in the bowl because he's withdrawn from the portal. But I don't see anybody who's like actually going to end up transferring playing in the bowl game.
Yeah, why would you want to and risk injury? And like, there's just no positive that could come from that for anybody.
That's a weird deal. The only way I could see that situation if it's like a group of 5 guy who's a baller and everybody knows, oh, he's probably going to be in the SEC next year or whatever. That kind of deal where like you can't even be mad at him for transferring. But in the SEC, like,
yeah.
No.
Or if I'm a head coach and I have something in my contract where if I win this bowl game, if it's like, even if it's a crap bowl game, I get like an extra $500,000. I'll be like, yeah, I'll take any good player who wants to play.
Braxton, you sure you don't want to suit up?
Yeah, because we could really use your help, aka I could really use the money. Super chat from Heath Powers just says Ellis's hair looks luscious. So
I agree with that.
I'm a little bit stressed because I'm about to have to go to an event that I can't wear a hat at. So I am a little bit stressed. I'll have to do something, but
man bun.
For now, the hair looks good.
Man bun. And then what people with long hair do,
should
like
man bun it, you think?
Man bun it, pony it.
I pony. You know what's crazy? I went to my grandfather's funeral and I ponied it there. I actually man bunned it there. I might man bun it at Bob's funeral.
I want to respect whatever you do, brother.
Yeah.
And so
if you do a man bun, that's one thing. But I feel like if you do the ponytail, you're just going to look like the most traditional 1990s kids movie villain, because like all the kids movies villains had guys with ponytails. So
I'm officially man bunning it like 100%.
If you do that and we're sitting beside each other and I, hit you with the Bob voice to comment on your hair, you can't laugh. You cannot.
I can't laugh because it's in respect. But yeah, Bob 100%. If he saw me with the man bun, be like, Pierce,
dude, you'd never live it down.
Nope.
Oh man,
Astro, what's going on with your hair there? Andrew, is that new style?
Are they calling that a man bun these days?
Oh, so yeah, we called it something different when I was a kid. I don't remember what it was called, but it was something different.
God, I miss that, man.
I do too, man. I do too. Yeah. So because it's all somebody asked about. Well, all 3 of us I know are going to be at the celebration of life, as it's called, for Bob Holt this afternoon too. So yeah, we'll be out there. In fact, we probably will end Inside Arkansas Live a little early just to make sure we give us plenty of time to get over there. A few other comments, a few super chats. Thanks, David, for the super chat. We appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
He says, so we have plenty of NIL, but if we paid the guys who left to go to Ole Miss what they wanted, we'd run out of money. That's literally a money problem when Ole Miss can afford it and we can't. Bingo. Thank you. I mean,
this is what we've been trying to figure out. The math on how exactly that works. I'm guessing that it's probably exactly what Pittman's kind of been laying out the entire time, which is they were going to have more money, like as a solo entity, because of revenue sharing, maybe a little bump in the collective, whatever. But that doesn't mean that all these other schools don't still have more. Yeah. Like the ones like Ole Miss, especially. So they can, they've got more to spend and more to work with, which is absolutely a good thing. But still, like relative to your peers, it doesn't sound like you're in maybe the spot that you want to be in.
Yeah, and I mean, look, and I guess if you're a Razorback fan looking for a spin, and a lot of them have already found this, that your just argument would be, well, Patrick Kutas isn't worth whatever they're paying, so let Ole Miss overpay for a guy, which may or may not be true. The only problem I have with it is that Pittman says he thinks they can get better players for less money. There are literally 0 transfer portal guards ranked above Patrick Kutas. Mm-hmm. There are none. So it's like you're going to get a worse or let's just say less proven, less experienced guy. And yeah, you might be able to pay him less money, but I just don't see how you're going to improve and pay less money. So, we'll see who they end up with. I mean, they've got some options, but yeah, I don't know how. I mean, it just is also tough that Ole Miss is the team that the blue light special comment came from, and it's an offensive lineman that Arkansas is refusing to pay a lot of money. Like the jokes kind of write themselves.
I do want to throw this out there, and Andrew, I'm pretty sure that you are the one that turned me on to this name. Maybe it was Ball State, not Bowling Green. I don't remember, but the offensive lineman that they offered last night from Bowling Green, the tackle. Now they offered him, so yeah, I don't know if he's coming on a visit or anything yet. He's got a ton of offers. Great PFF grade. That dude's the real deal. That would be a guy that would be a needle mover on the offensive line for me, like back to back, all MAC selection, and he's really, really good. That kind of thing would excite me, but again, like you're gonna have to pay Patrick Kutas money to get him. So,
right. Well, that's my thing. And by the way, I see Kingsley here is saying you'll get a lesser guard, but maybe better secondary players. Well, all right. But I mean, what secondary player are we referencing here because we see the guys that they have on campus and those don't seem like the guys that you're spending a ton of money. Like even the DT Sheffield kid, who I like a lot from North Texas, I don't think he's going to cost $1 million, So it's like, I'm just wondering if Arkansas actually has that money, where is it actually going? And I'm very skeptical that what the big man said yesterday is accurate.
Also, this comment from Hog Wild YT, appreciate the super chat, man. It says transfer in conference should have to sit a year. Here's the thing, it won't happen, but I actually would not be opposed to this. I really would.
Sure.
Because it literally went from no matter what, unless the very small way of being a grad transfer, that was the only way you could be immediately eligible. Anyway, and then the other school that you're transferring has to have the same degree that you got your degree in order to go into grad school for that. Like, just so much stuff. But now it went from that to just free for all, whatever. I believe there could be a way of, whether it's tampering or whatever, especially in the SEC, if there was a rule put into place where you have to sit out a year, that would help tremendously, because then it'd also make people, and not everybody's this way, but it would make people who go into the portal really have to consider it, be like, okay, if I do this, that's great. But no, if I want to stay in the SEC because so-and-so is over here offering me a huge bag, I know I'm not going to play for a year. But it would at least counter some of that and be a lot more helpful for that. And I don't think they're ever going to do it, but I like the idea in theory, at least.
Maybe, maybe something like that. Or since this is all about NIL or whatever, you know how like in Major League Baseball, if a certain guy gets signed, you have to give up a compensatory draft pick or whatever. Like it costs you to do that. So maybe there's a penalty. You know what I mean? Like maybe there's a fee on it. And so like whatever you pay the kid, then a certain percentage of that has to go back to Arkansas for their loss. Or, I don't know, or like whatever they were paying them, like you get that money back from the school that's poaching them. If it's in the SEC or something, the only thing that's difficult about that is then if the kid transferred for a legitimate reason, like the coach was an asset, because that's how all these kids were getting eligible before, because they would do, and I'm not making light of it all, because a lot of cases this is true, but some of them were just using the excuse of, oh, my mental health, I had to get out of there. You can do the exact same thing in this situation to kind of counteract that. But there's got to be some kind of checks and balances involved here, because this is kind of crazy.
This also, and by the way, like I'm all for like any type of, steps they want to take to clean some of this up. What this particular thing would do, especially with the revenue sharing going to where SEC teams are going to have a little bit of a leg up, you would just see a mass, like all the smaller conferences would get obliterated. Because you would be like, oh, I have to sit out if I transfer in conference, but I can go to the SEC where they can pay me more money and I don't have to sit out. So really, it would make the rich richer in college football. And when I say the rich richer, I mean the richer conferences richer. And so, I think it would really, like, the group of 5 coaches would be livid about that.
Also, another chat. Appreciate it. Brock, Melvin. If I think this is the Brock I'm remembering down in Little Rock, miss you at the fountain, buddy. He says, people keep saying, who cares, because we went 6-6, so those players can leave. With the right coaching, we would have gone 8-4, which that's the case, because I think everybody can agree that Oklahoma State game, especially, is a game you should have won, and no ifs, ands, buts about it. Yeah. And that puts you at 7-5. And then even thinking of one of these other games that maybe should have gone your way. It could have been the Missouri game that could have gone your way. Could have been, the Texas game and how close you were in that one, and or the A&M, whatever it is. I mean, woulda, coulda, shoulda. You could play the game all day long. But yeah, that was the thing also too, when talking about, it's 6-6 team. This wasn't a 6-6 talent. Like, this wasn't a 6-6 level roster. Because to me, whenever you mention that type, if you give a record to what you feel like your talent is, to me, that should be like, that the best case was that a 6-6 team, because you got the most out of your talent, and that's why they were 6-6. That's not the type of comment I think they should be making. This was an 8-4 roster. It really was. This past year was an 8-4 roster. You did not get the most out of it. So this wasn't a 6-6 talent deal. I don't buy that. I didn't like that comment either, but I get what he's trying to say, but I just didn't like that kind of comment.
Well, that, and that's also, it's stuffing a lot into one box. Like, so by this logic, are we saying that Andrew Armstrong is a 6-6 football player?
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? Absolutely not. And some of these guys aren't either. Now, some of the guys that they lost that just dipped out, they might be 3-9 football players. If we want to put that qualifier on there. But the point is, like, the team wound up being 6-6, but it's a collective thing, not individually. And we're talking about an individual situation in terms of, guys who absolutely could be contributing players on very good football teams, which is what Patrick Kudus is about to be. So, I've heard that a lot, and it kind of gets under my skin because it's such a generalization of 6-6, who gives a damn, whatever. Okay, but you got to really look at each case individually, I think.
100%. And that's undeniable. I don't know why anybody can't see it through that nuanced lens. It seems like we're just playing stupid ball here. As the one person on this panel who picked Arkansas to go 6-6 correctly, I feel like I'm the one that's qualified to speak on this. But here are the two things that I've been hearing from the fan base a lot lately. One is, well, Arkansas had to replace a lot of pieces last year, and they were able to go from 4-8 to 6-6. So they cite it as like mass exodus isn't a bad thing because we went 6-6 this year. But I also hear it's a 6-6 team. Who cares who leaves? I mean, these guys suck. You just can't have both of those things be true. I need everyone to understand that you cannot play both cards here. And you also can't do the let's bring back Sam Pittman for continuity. Oh, actually, continuity doesn't matter. He'll just crush it in the portal, and the portal's ruining college football. But also, that's our only path to success if we're Arkansas. And so it's like you're backing yourself into a little bit of a corner here. And I feel like Sam Pittman himself has backed himself into somewhat of a corner with some of the statements he's made. I mean, hell, 2 weeks ago, he told us in the press conference that the portal wasn't going to be that big of a deal. He said, we've got money. We're going to be able to retain some of these guys on our roster because we have more money. And now here he is saying, well, actually, we didn't think they were worth that money. So we're not going to spend that money, and we have it. And we're just going to use it on, FCS transfers. And, it's just kind of, there's a lot of like, you can keep moving the goalposts, but eventually you got to make the damn field goal.
Yeah. And also too, like if you're talking about 6-6 players and everything, Ole Miss went 9-3 this year, probably should have been a lot better. It seems like you think Lane Kiffin's like, yeah, I want these 3 players that are on visits because I feel like they're 6-6 caliber players. Like, come on. Like that's not the case. That's not the case at all.
He took a 4-8 player in Chris Paul, and look how that worked out for him.
Yeah. Stupid comment. Also, Ryan, thanks for the super chat, man. He says teams should be forced to disclose NIL spending. Never going to happen. I get what you're saying, but it's never going to happen.
Like, what's the case for why they need to? Like, who benefits from it?
I think more just of us because we know.
Just to give us something to talk about, but it's like in terms of like why we actually need it to happen. I don't know. I don't know what happens there.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, this is kind of the reasons why people need a GM. Because even Eric asked earlier, he's like, who would you pick for Arkansas's GM? It's not like I know who would be a great general manager of college football because it's not really been a thing. But I don't know. Go get what's his name from the Cubs that did such a good job.
Theo Epstein.
Yeah, he was at the Red Sox too.
Just get him.
I would just settle for them having a GM. I haven't heard one person give me a good counter as to why it's actually a good thing that Arkansas doesn't have a GM when everyone else in the SEC does.
I don't understand that either. It's like, you guys are stupid. They're going to be thinking about GMs, but we're not going to have one. We're going to go against all grain. It's like, hey, well, if you want to know who I picked to be an Arkansas GM, how about this? How about finding somebody that was a football player or maybe a former Razorback it doesn't have to be like a great player, but just a former Razorback that also has great experience in dealing as being a manager of whether it's a major company or something like that. Like have that to me would be the best bet is getting somebody who's football savvy, but also good at actually being a general manager of whatever it is.
John Randall Tyson.
Hey, get him in there.
What's SJ Tui doing these days? Bring him back.
Dude, he goes to Oral Roberts now.
He's right down the road, bro.
Yeah.
Bring him on over.
I've seen this name floated a little bit. Raleigh Williams, by the way, who's on the Forbes 30 under 30, obviously had his football career cut short, but he did some work in the Cowboys organization as well. That's a really sharp dude. If you could somehow convince him, and I believe he's still tapped in with Razorback stuff, I would be very seriously considering Raleigh Williams. One, because I love Raleigh Williams, but also like he seems to actually be on that kind of track to doing something like that.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Actually,
that'd be a home run right there.
Mm-hmm. Would they? But you got to wait till April if that happens.
Yeah, April they'll bring him in.
Like maybe that's why. Maybe Raleigh's got some sort of contract problem, and they got to wait until April to bring him in. Maybe that's the case. Because I saw somebody being like, "Oh, let's just go and get this former player A." Like, can we just maybe get somebody that maybe has a little bit of an experience with GM? Yeah.
Right. But that's why I like Raleigh, because he's actually doing stuff in front offices and stuff like that. But exactly. I saw DJ Williams' name floated around. It's like, all right, come on.
Okay. It's like somebody, like if they need a new running backs coach, Darren McFadden. Okay, well, how do we know he's going to be able to, like, just because he was a great running back does not mean he just can step right in and develop people and develop running backs and recruit and all that stuff. It just doesn't make sense. So,
hey, William Brown, this is incorrect information. We had John predicted Arkansas to go 7-5. I said 6-6. Curtis said 5-7. They went 6-6. Suck it.
Yep. Although I feel like I should have been right. You were right, Andrew, but I should have been right. That Oklahoma State game still kills me. I could have nailed it.
That is tough.
Could have nailed it. But just wasn't going to be the case. But yeah, just they need to get. I already see people saying John Tyson, get him in there. No Houston Nutt, absolutely not. Stop.
John L. Hunt.
Yeah, just get one of the Walton people in there. Just have them in because it should be fine. Man, you guys are crazy. Let's see. There was another couple chats here that wanted to get into. I want to make sure I didn't miss out on any super chats or anything like that. Yeah, I like this from Heartbroken Hogs. Says, Ellis, why didn't you record last night instead of going live? I know it's because you didn't want to keep the chat keeping you too long.
Well, I was like really close to being out of the door to leave, but also like there's just only so much you can say about a guy who has not played any collegiate snaps. The fact that I got 10 minutes out of it, I feel like I should win an Emmy for that. But no, yeah, there really wasn't I wasn't going to be able to tell you much about his game. If anyone asked me a question of what's his strength? I don't know. He hadn't played. What's his weakness? I don't know. He hadn't played. Could he start? I don't know. He hadn't played. It's like it would have just been a lot of me giving you fake answers, and I didn't want to do that. And so I felt like we did what we had to do.
There'll be plenty of lives coming up for some of these for sure.
Yes, plenty of lives. Also, because Andrew wanted us to remind him. All right, we need some comments on Maddox Lassiter.
Okay.
Because SCT's over here saying we went back and did a deep dive on Maddox Lassiter's film last night. And he might be the best tight end we've ever had.
I mean, he's definitely the most versatile player that's ever been on the roster.
He's the best tight end on the roster right now.
I mean, without a doubt, yeah. Although I will say, he didn't even play tight end this year. He played fullback, which I mean, more or less the same thing. H-back, whatever. Kind of the same thing. But yeah, I'll be interested to see if he if they move him to tight end, if he really plays tight end, or if he's just going to be, continue to be a fullback, H-back type of thing. Not that it really matters, but love Maddox Lassiter. Love that he's now on scholarship, by the way. You want to talk about earning a scholarship? I feel like he was probably overdue for that because even last year before he played, I remember Sam Pittman mentioning him in a press conference.
Out of nowhere.
And we were like, who the hell is Maddox Lassiter? We were literally like, what is he talking about? But yeah, it was mid-October, and he's like, one guy we'd like to get going is Maddox Lassiter. And we were like, what? So it's I feel this is clearly a guy that since he got on campus has been overachieving, has been impressing the staff. I mean, the fact that he got on the field as a redshirt freshman, and I'm not trying to take a shot at Shamar Easter, but Shamar Easter is in the same class as Maddox Lassiter, 4-star scholarship player. And Lassiter's out there really moving the needle for this team. And Easter might move to a receiver and all that, but just tells you about this kid and how they view him. And yeah, very well deserved scholarship.
I love it. We've been talking about Maddox Lassiter the entire season. Because it was not lost on us. Once we started seeing him on the field and we started looking into it a little bit more, and we were like, this dude in high school did everything. He was a quarterback, a running back, a defensive player, and just racked up stats like crazy. The dude is versatile. I'm telling you right now. Sam said yesterday when he was asked about which are there any freshmen you feel can play early? He was like, well, we hope the kicker. Doesn't matter if he can or not. Maddox Lassiter can do it. I'm just telling you right now. He would not miss an extra point all season.
No, he wouldn't. Not at all.
Man.
And where is he? When where he played? Warren.
We got old Warren.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
right. Sorry.
What more do you need?
No one knows that inside joke about who did he play for, because I went to the Catfish Hole one time for the John L. Smith recruiting special thing that they did one night. And man, it was cringy, but there was this lady that just kept on the microphone, was like, do you know who he used to play for? And it would always be hey, they brought up Pete Carroll because they were like, oh yeah, this certain person, did this. And do you remember who he used to play for? Pete Carroll. And I was like, he didn't play for Pete Carroll. He's been at Seattle for a while, but I'm not going to say anything about it. And they tried to make that Arkansas connection. That was just rough. So just to give background that nobody cares about. Anyways, let's go ahead and do a little SEC update here presented by Rhoback. Go to Rhoback.com, Hogs by 20, get 20% off your first purchase. So you like this? You like this little thing I'm wearing? It's Rhoback. It's comfortable. It's the only it makes me feel shirtless in my comfort zone because that's how good it feels. It feels like you're not wearing anything. So check it out. Get Rhoback.com. Great gifts for everybody. They got everything, joggers. They got quarter zips, all the greatest apparel you could have for your first purchase. Promo code Hogs by 20 for 20% off your order. All right. So a few things going on in the SEC. SEC announced the 2024 all freshman team. Arkansas had no players on it, so who cares? But there was some interesting news from the LSU side of things. People are in the chat were having us bring this up, or at least wanting us to bring this up. It's about Brian Kelly of LSU.
Yeah.
So he announced that he is donating $1 million to the LSU's foundation if fans raise over $1 million for its collective. So essentially being a match.
So that's the way around not being able to donate yourself if you're an employee.
Yep.
That's
He
smart.
checked it.
He did.
Yeah. He really he reverse psychologied them into doubling their NIL. It's actually a genius move. And
savvy.
How is that legal?
I don't know.
I'm sure there's something.
I'm telling you, it's just Chael Sonnen always says we will strictly adhere to the rules that we make up on the spot, and that's where we're at with NIL. We will follow the rules, but just admit we're gonna make them up as we go.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's funny because it's just people do things, and it's getting to the point where, at least in my opinion, everyone's like, "Hey, I'd rather ask for forgiveness than permission. I'm just going to do it, and then if they have a problem with it, I'll either tell them to kick rocks or whatever." But it's like, "Hey, how is that legal?" I don't know if it is, Jerry, but we're going to do it. Oh, okay, well, Godspeed. Hopefully, it works out for you. That's how I feel right now. But kudos to him. More NIL, and any way you can do it legally, you got to make it happen. So. But yeah, good for him. And also in some other SEC news, well, I said it was SEC news. I don't know if it's necessarily SEC news, but still, I can't get over the fact that Bill Belichick's the coach of North Carolina. I just can't deal with that.
That's very much not SEC news.
It's not. But I can't get over it either. No, but the reason I brought it up is because Dan Mullen officially became the coach of UNLV, which in a roundabout super Stretch Armstrong way is SEC related because he did coach in the SEC for a while.
Yeah.
But that's a good hire for him. And man, Dan Mullen seems to fit in Vegas. I mean, think about that. Going from Starkville to Gainesville to Vegas. Whew.
Dan Mullen is definitely more of a Fremont Street than he is a Strip guy.
Oh yeah.
Like he's a Circa character, I think.
Yes. Yeah. He's going to be up there at that top rooftop pool,
betting
on all the games.
We'll see him there.
Yeah. A couple of broads on each arm. I can totally see a cigar in his mouth. Yeah, he seems the type.
This is actually nuts, man. Like Belichick, that's I mean, obviously that's crazy. Yeah, Mullen to UNLV, Rich Rodriguez going to West Virginia.
Dude.
And it's like, what are we doing here with the throwbacks, man? This is crazy.
You think Mullen would be open to hypothetically leaving UNLV after one season? Just curious.
Probably about as open as his predecessor over there. So.
Yeah. And Barry got 2 solid seasons there at UNLV.
He didn't have to, but he did.
Is Barry the best UNLV coach of all time? Gotta be, right?
Yeah,
he's gotta
absolutely.
be.
I'd like to know who else can be in the running. I don't even know.
Yeah, I'm sure. Whoever it was that beat Arkansas in a bowl game that one time.
Yeah, which that 6-6 UNLV team. Yeah, beat Arkansas, who was also a 6-6 team. Yeah,
you know what I love? I love that Belichick hired Michael Lombardi as his GM. I used to listen to Michael Lombardi when he had a podcast with The Ringer, and I always liked him. I always liked hearing his thoughts on stuff. He was always like one of those guys. He was kind of like LeBron, where he would always be like, "Oh, I called that this guy was going to be great. I told the Ravens to draft Lamar, and I did all this." And so it'll be funny to see him handling 19-year-old contracts and seeing if he enjoys it. I imagine both of these guys are about to do this for a year and be like, "This sucks."
I just want to bring this up too because it has nothing to do with anything but UNLV. Do you want to know how many bowl games UNLV went to in 30 years prior to Barry Odom being the head coach?
7.
3.
Wow.
3 bowl games.
Man.
They went to a bowl game in Vegas. So this is where 94, even like 30 years ago, he went to the Vegas Bowl. In 2000, they went to the Vegas Bowl against Arkansas. And then they went in 2013 to the Heart of Dallas Bowl. Those are the only bowl games that they have been to in 30 years. And then you got Barry Odom, who just strolls right in and wins 19 games and loses only 8. So
I would say that's a resounding yes. He is the best head coach in UNLV history, responsible for 40% of the school's bowl appearances.
Yeah, that is brutal. And it's just so funny how, like, I don't know. I understand UNLV is not a huge school and all that, but man, I feel like there'd be still some allure for kids to go to Vegas. don't know.
It's also messed up that 2 of those bowl appearances are in Vegas, where it's like they couldn't even give them a trip. Just you're staying here and playing.
Yeah. Before that, in 1984, they went to the California Bowl, which apparently was a thing.
There you go.
So, but they got it forfeited, so it didn't matter. Let's see. So, when you brought up the coaches, who do you think will have the most success in the short period of time that they'll actually be employed at those schools? Bill Belichick at North Carolina or Rich Rodriguez at West Virginia?
Probably Bill, because they've got a $20 million budget with NIL.
Yeah.
So, like, even if like he is washed up, like they'll have a pretty talented roster.
I would probably agree with that.
Yeah. Because the Rich Rodriguez thing is weird because anytime you bring back a coach, which has happened before, Bobby Petrino's gone back to every school he's ever been at ever. But the thing is at least leading up to that point, there was success in it. Rich Rodriguez, since he left West Virginia the first time, has not really had success. No. Even when he was an OC, I think at Arizona, he did okay at times. But I just don't understand, like, hey, as they say, Steve Slayton ain't walking through that door. Pat White, Noel Devine. Those aren't the guys that are walking through that door, but power to them. That's what's going to end up happening for them. So, yeah, jeez. And real quick, because, guys, we're going to talk a little basketball. Justin Acree, actually, of the UCA Bears. We're going to play an interview that I had with him just a little bit, and it's going to be resounding because it's always fun to talk a little hoops. But there is some basketball games happening this weekend. Arkansas, of course, playing down there in North Little Rock against UCA. What time is that game, Curtis, exactly? I had that written.
Is 3 o'clock, I think?
3 o'clock. That's right. Yeah, 3 o'clock. So that game's going to be happening. I know a lot of people are going to be down there. It's actually a really cool event where it's always packed, down there.
The atmosphere is always awesome. The game is always insane.
Yep. You never know what to expect. So who knows with this one? UCA struggled this year, though. They're only 2-7. So not exactly.
They lost to UAPB.
Yeah, and they've lost to UAPB and they lost to Little Rock. So it's, they're not doing well against the in-state schools. But this game is going to be down there. So I know a lot of people are going to be making the trip. It's going to be a lot of fun. But there's a few other games of note in the SEC. Real quick before we, again, move on to talk with Acree. You got A&M and Purdue, 2 top 20 teams facing off at 11 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Purdue smacks them.
Yeah, the game's going to be there in Indianapolis at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. So full top 20 action early on CBS. So it'll be fun. I would say Ohio State and Auburn would be fun, but I don't really think it would be. That game's being played in Atlanta as part of the holiday hoops giving.
Maybe this is Auburn's first sign of a slip up. Like what'd you call them? November national champions? Or you asked if they were the November national champions. They're not going to be this good all year, are they? Maybe it's like Ohio State sneaks up on them.
Blew their load a little
Probably
early.
Not.
Surely not. You also got this again. A couple games to know. You got Florida, Arizona State. That game's on the SEC Network. I can't believe Florida's number 9 in the country. Like, it just when I see that number, I'm like, oh, geez.
Haven't played anybody, haven't lost.
I know, dude. When preseason, when they were like 20 or whatever, I was like, how did Florida get ranked? And then they just keep on just failing upwards. It's crazy.
The unflappable Todd Golden.
Yeah, to say they're playing hard.
They're playing through adversity too. Yeah,
they're playing hard for their coach who stalks people.
That's right.
Good deal. So you got that game, should be interesting. And then, of course, a big rival, and whether you hate them, love them, or whatever, but you got Kentucky-Louisville happening on Saturday.
That's always fun. It is.
Yeah. 4:15 in the afternoon on ESPN. So that game is there in Lexington. Kentucky, of course, number 5 in the country. Louisville 6-4. So should be an interesting matchup there.
I'm intrigued by that.
I am too, just because it's a rival, man.
Louisville has their entire front court, I think, is injured aside from one guy, and then Kentucky's missing both of their point guards or whatever. So it's kind of a weird matchup of not healthy teams.
Yeah, and
I think Kentucky's gonna kill them. Louisville won 2 games early in the year, and people were doing victory laps and being like, "Oh, see how bad Kenny Payne is." Louisville, look how improved they are. They're better, but are they that much improved? I
don't know.
Yeah, they smoked Indiana, and everyone thought that was the game. But
right,
I want to say has to be the first time these two teams met with first-year coaches, because both of them have first-year coaches. So has to be a new thing. Yeah. Couple other games here. You got Tennessee, Illinois, also at 15 minutes later at 4:30 in the afternoon.
That's an interesting game.
It is. Yep. That game's it's there in Champaign in Illinois, and it's on Fox, which is so funny because it's like You don't see SEC teams very often on Fox.
No. Tennessee's going to take their first L.
Think so?
Really?
so.
I would love for that to happen. I would love for it.
Me too. You think Burt will be in attendance?
Yeah.
Sure.
What else is he going to do?
Yeah.
That's true. That's true. He'll be having a good time.
He'll be wearing the sweatsuit with the slides with no socks.
Yep. And probably no, I'm not gonna say it. You also got you got Bedlam. You got Bedlam of the basketball variety, Oklahoma State and Oklahoma. So that's on ESPNU at 7 o'clock.
Not a conference game.
Devo's going to hand the Sooners an L.
How is Devo doing, by the way? Do we know?
He's out there.
Is he doing Devo
I'm going to
things?
guess he's averaging about 7 to 8 points.
4.
4?
4.
Okay.
He's averaging 4 points, 2.5 rebounds, 1 assist. And he is he's shooting an electric 23% from 3-point land. So, so he's being Devo. He's doing Devo things.
He's a second half of the year player.
There you go. And finally, Alabama and Creighton tomorrow night.
That would be interesting if Creighton didn't just lose their best guard.
Yeah.
That's probably going to be a slaughter.
Yeah, it probably will be.
Is Dougie McBucket Sr. still at Creighton?
No.
I think so. Oh, he's not?
I'm sorry. No. Yes, he is. You're talking about the coach. I'm sorry.
The coach. Sorry. Yeah.
I thought you said junior at first, and I thought you were just making an offhand comment about Baylor Shireman being another really good white player at Creighton. That's on me. That's on me.
Oh gosh. So yeah,
that'll be at Creighton though, or no?
No, it's at Bama.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be a blowout. Okay.
Yeah. So, but that's what the SEC looks like. Before we get the interview, one last comment, folks, or at least one last question. Army Navy, who do you got?
Ooh,
Army.
Yeah, Army.
Army's good, man. They made me eat some crow last week when they beat up on Tulane.
Who did the jersey reveal that we watched a couple weeks ago? Yeah, Army it is. Okay.
Yeah. Army, according to Bet Saracen's, favored by 6. I'm actually going to go with Navy because that's how this game usually goes sometimes. It's like
against the grain, yeah.
Yep, true rivalry there. President-elect Trump and his group's going to be there. I'm sure that'll be a spectacle. It's going to be a fun time. And if you want to go, it's only $150 to get into the door. But still, should
just slightly more expensive than a student going to the Liberty Bowl.
Man, it's true, sad but true. So, all right, folks. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to play this interview that I did with Justin Acree of UCA. We'll have that. We'll come back, close up the shop, and then we'll get you out of here for the weekend. So once again, here's our interview with the voice of the UCA Bears, Justin Acree, down there, 103.7 The Buzz. Well, Razorback fans, we know that Arkansas got a huge win earlier this week against the Michigan Wolverines up at Madison Square Garden, but they have another place to go, another place to travel, and it's a tradition like no other. It's the Arkansas Razorbacks going down to North Little Rock and Simmons Bank Arena to take on an in-state opponent, the UCA Bears. So who better to talk about UCA than the guy who watches them and talks about them literally each and every game, and his name is Justin Acree. He's the voice of UCA Bears down there in Conway, as well as the general manager of 103.7 The Buzz. But Acree, it's been a long time, man. How you doing?
Good, John. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing awesome, man. And I know that this particular game, it's always cool when these two in-state opponents match up, but starting with the UCA side of things, being 2-7, obviously the season's not going to release according to plan for them. Had a lot of close calls, but what can you kind of just tell us as far as the overall vibe of this team and kind of summarizing the season so far up to this point?
Yeah, you got one senior on the team, which is pretty rare these days. I mean, so there's not a lot of upperclassmen transfers, things like that. They're kind of leaning on younger guys right now. They've got a guy who transferred over after a year in Division III, and then I think most people probably that follow college basketball and high school basketball around the state know about Lane Taylor, who's obviously one of the premier scorers in state history and the number one assist guy in state history too. And he's off to a good start, 17 points a game for him, and he's shooting it well, about 35%. He's had a lot of good plays made so far early on, and he's a guy that's they kind of trying to figure out their roles exactly. He's a guy that really was a primary ball handler in high school, and he's been playing off the ball a little bit more. Braden Fagbemi's the kid I'm talking about that transferred in from Johns Hopkins, and so I think Lane is settling in nicely, doing a really good job, and some other guys have been a little bit inconsistent. And, hopefully they can be a little bit more, on target on a regular basis once they get into conference play. But this is obviously a monumental challenge for the Bears. But, look, they're going to play a few of these money games, these buy games early in the season. It's a great opportunity for them. And the good news for them is the expenses are pretty limited, just driving 30 miles down for the game.
Yeah, and also the sake for Arkansas is that, again, they had the big win against Michigan. It was their first marquee win. But there's been some games this season where they've struggled a little bit, even against games and teams they beat. There was some struggles there. But as matchup-wise, if UCA is going to pull off a huge upset here, which it would be, but how are they going to be able to do it? How can they do it matching up against this Razorback team?
Well, I think the biggest thing is obviously take care of the ball, and then they're going to have to make a lot of shots. I mean, they're not afraid to shoot threes. I mean, they've shot, upwards of 33s a couple of times this year. So they will put up shots from the perimeter. But I mean, they're really trying to sort of establish an attacking philosophy. That's going to be tough, certainly against, the bigs of Arkansas. And we'll see, I know Edu's coming on, and obviously Brazil is playing the best we've seen him really play since the first year he stepped on campus, it looks like to me. So, and I think the length of their guards could be an issue too. But I mean, look, it's a tough challenge. I mean, but they're going to have to knock down perimeter shots. Taylor will have to play out of his mind. Bagbemi can certainly shoot it. He hasn't shot it particularly well so far. And then Elias Cato is sort of an X factor for the Bears. He's a 6'9" Australian senior, and he's a guy that I expect has a chance to be all conference this year in the A-Sun, and he's been productive, about 15 points a game and a little over 5 rebounds a game. But he, again, hasn't shot it particularly well the last few games, and so hopefully he can step it up a little bit too. He's got kind of a interesting three-point shot you'll see when you watch the game. He kind of jumps into his shots from the perimeter, and he's been pretty accurate at times, though. He shot it well last season, not so great so far this year, though.
Well, this game being in North Little Rock, it's always an interesting one because Arkansas has played various opponents, and some games haven't really gone their way. Some games have been just fine. But before we talk about the matchup of in-state teams, just playing this game in North Little Rock,
yeah,
I was down there when I worked at the Buzz. I know you've been down there a lot. This is always a very big event, always packed out. Just how important is it to always maintain a game down there in Little Rock when it comes to Razorback basketball, especially when you take on an in-state opponent as well?
Yeah, I guess it depends who you ask, doesn't it, John? So, I mean, there's always that Northwest Central Arkansas thing, whether you're talking about football or basketball or baseball. And I think people are pretty tolerant of it with basketball and baseball. And the crowd's been phenomenal. I mean, Dickey-Stevens Park has been packed for the baseball games. The arena is, they sold out the bottom part of the bowl almost exclusive, almost completely right out of the gate. So there's a ton of interest in the game, even though, again, on paper, it's a bit of a mismatch. There's still some upper deck seats, but again, you get great energy in there. You're right. Arkansas has not had a ton of success. There have been a few stumbles along the way in the North Little Rock game, but I can't blame it on on the venue or certainly the support here in Central Arkansas. I think it'll be great for Coach Cal, and I mean, I don't know what his thoughts are. And this is not a shot at Northwest Arkansas. I realize you're playing some lesser known opponents, and it's hard. Everybody's busy, and football season's still going on, but I've been a little disappointed, just like, he's used to what he's used to, and I'm not going to ever compare, to his former program. But, I would like to see more butts in the seats. It's easy for me to say. I'm not a guy that's going up there, especially if you're in Central Arkansas and you got season tickets. I know it's hard to make that trek like on a Tuesday or Wednesday, maybe a little easier on the weekend. But I think for his sake and, for the team's sake, it'll be great to see a packed house, and a team that's supporting you as opposed to maybe seeing a packed house on a neutral court or away from home somewhere.
So also playing an in-state opponent, because there's been times they've played this game where they haven't played an in-state opponent. Right. It's been even teams that don't even care about and don't even note. But having this in-state thing, I feel like also adds a whole nother element to it. And I feel like that's probably makes it a lot more fun for UCA. Not to say that, hey, going to Bud Walton's this huge problem and so far away, but right. Being able to have in-state teams play, but also they're in that neutral site game in the center of the state, I think is also a great thing for both teams, but also just for the state of Arkansas in general.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I'll be curious to see how many people in purple show up. There are a lot of folks who are UCA fans that also support the Razorbacks. And, there are probably people who go to University of Central Arkansas that are Razorback fans first. Now, whether they root for their school or they root for their, the big school in the state, we'll see. But, I think there will be good energy in there. I hope there's a lot of folks in the house for UCA because it certainly adds, an extra element to it, a little more energy. And, but I do think the crowd will be really good. And, you do see a lot of people who have sort of dual citizenship, if you will, when it comes to sports fandom in this state. And, whether they're a UAPB fan, they also root for the Hogs, UCA root for the Hogs, Little Rock, Trojans root for the Hogs. So I think it'll add an element, I hope, and again, this is not the hardest matchup they have had in North Little Rock, certainly over the years.
Also, the in-state element, too, of kids on the team. Arkansas has always had quite a few of those, and some of them have transferred out. Some of them are at A-State now, and it seems like a never-going thing. But there's quite a few of those kids that are on UCA's roster from the state of Arkansas, particularly in the Central Arkansas area. Is that kind of where a lot of success can be built at UCA as far as getting guys in-state or maybe guys that went to Arkansas or other places, went out of state to come back through the transfer portal? Just how important is it, and how beneficial can it be to build a roster of in-state kids there at UCA?
Yeah, obviously they're building around, Lane Taylor, John. I mean, he's a freakish player from back in the day. He's an undersized guard. That's the reason why he wasn't recruited at a higher level, but he did have opportunities to go to bigger schools, and I'm sure there was probably a little more NIL money on the table for him with those opportunities too. But he wants to try to build something here and stay closer to home. His dad, Johnny, makes it down to, most of the games. I've seen him when we were in Utah. He was at the Utah game. I mean, so I know he's locked in. He's obviously trying to coach, his team as well at Farmington, but it does, they're going to lean on him heavily. And then Ty Robinson's kind of a guy that they're waiting on, John. He's from Lake Hamilton, and he's been injured all year. He's played just a very sparing, moment or two here and there. But if they can get him healthy, he was a guy that projected to be probably a starter. So hopefully we can get him to get healthy and get right.
So that was the interview with Justin Acree, the voice of the UCA Bears. Actually cut off late because he got a phone call. So that's the way it goes. But either way, but yeah, that does it for us. Curtis, any final thoughts before we roll out of here?
Well, man, like I am looking forward to this game tomorrow. I have no doubt that it's going to be as crazy as it typically is in Simmons Bank Arena. But honestly, it's time for Arkansas to do the wire to wire thing. Make it look easy for a change. Avoid the letdown, right? Sometimes you have the letdown in a big atmosphere in North Little Rock for whatever reason. There's voodoo magic. I don't know what's going on. But then also, the emotional high, big win in Madison Square Garden. Are you feeling yourselves, or are you going to go out there and kind of build on what you did the other day? So hopefully we see that from the Razorbacks. I'm looking forward to it.
Yep, hopefully so. Well, folks, so we're going to get out of here because obviously the celebration of life for Bob Holt is going to be taking place here at around 2:00. But real quick, Curtis, I don't know if you saw this, but this was really awesome. Tom Murphy tweeted this out. Speaking of Bob, among the individuals and groups who have sent flowers to the Bob Holt celebration of life, SEC office, the Cotton Bowl, the Razorback Foundation, University of Missouri, and to me, one of the coolest things, Nick and Terry Saban. Nick Saban sent some stuff there for Bob. So that is really cool and really awesome. So
awesome.
It's going to be a great celebration of life for Bob Holt here later this afternoon. But
yeah, I want to say I'm really looking forward to getting down there and just I love that they're calling it the celebration of life, man, because there's a lot of life and a lot of really good memories and stories to celebrate, and it's going to be really cool to hear all those and see everybody who's out there to support just a great man and a great friend and a legend in the state. And we love him. We're going to miss him. But this is definitely a celebration of life. I think is very fitting for what's about to go down there.
Yeah, it's going to be a celebration, no doubt. We can't wait. But appreciate each and every one of you listening and watching in Inside Arkansas Live. Be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube. Check out all of our social media at Inside Arkansas, and check out our website as well as InsideArkansas.com for all the latest and greatest up-to-date information on all things Razorbacks, and we'll keep it going from there. So for Andrew Ellis, as well as Curtis Wilkerson, and I'm John Neighbors, same sports show, same sports channel next Monday. We'll see you at Pot at the Palace post-game show tomorrow following Arkansas and UCA. Have a great rest of your weekend, everybody. We'll see you then.